from the light of the sun.
A nasty burn now, isn't that fun?
Swim in the ocean, run on the beach,
Drown in the surf and blood like a leech.
we have no time for merrymaking. Chop off the head for badness sake, sever a limb, batter and bake. Nasty spells of bubonic night, come close and see what's hidden from sight. Something festering in my bed bugs dancing.
I totally forgot to write an intro for this one. Welcome to my second week of Halloween month, everybody. Enjoy. I got nothing, so let's just get into it, I guess.
Festering in my bed bugs dancing on my head. Ever offends and makes you scream. I want to die on Halloween. Halloween, Halloween, I want to die on Halloween.
Bette Davis is former child star Baby Jane Hudson. She's responsible for putting her sister Joan Crawford in a wheelchair. Betty's also extraordinarily cruel to Joan, as she finally understands that her sister's mind is becoming warped as she tries to recapture her youthful fame.
Tell my sister the contents of this note. It's not me that needs a Dr. Blanche.
I might hesitate to call this a straight-up horror film, but it has some intense psychological stuff that I am all here for. It's got everything you'd want. Lies, betrayal, feeding your sister dead animals, and crazy old white ladies. Bette Davis is an absolute delight. Jane starts off as this jealous as hell aging woman whose star has faded. No one younger seems to know who she is, or if they are of the older generation that would know who she is, her very public car accident that put her sister in her wheelchair haunts her. And of course, they judge her for it. On the flip side, Blanche's limelight is still bright and celebrated by both older and younger people, and she herself seems proud of her own accomplishments. So you can probably see where the brunt of this conflict comes from. And because this is a quasi-horror film, you can see how off the rails it can get. Yeah, no kidding, Jane will literally kill Blanche's pet bird. Oh, and even when Blanche manages to call for help, Jane has the ability to distort her voice to sound like Blanche and undo her efforts. It's messed up, bro, and I love it. Also, don't get me wrong, I love Jack Nicholson, I love Heath Ledger, but if you told me that she was going to be the next Joker with her laugh, I would believe it and celebrate it. Rest in peace, Davis. The world of cinema hasn't been the same without you.
But you forgot my breakfast.
I didn't forget your breakfast. I didn't bring your breakfast because you didn't eat your din-din.
I feel like to have any negatives toward this movie is a crime against humanity and is deserving of cruel and unusual punishment, but if it makes anyone feel any better, I only have 2 complaints. Little ones. Little nitpicks. They're truly not big deals, but I'm gonna say them anyway. The smallest issue I have is that there are bouts of overacting. From Crawford. This scene, where she's spinning around all upset and shit, that was more funny than anything. I don't think people in wheelchairs express distress in such a way. And for much of this movie, it doesn't even really feel like a horror film. Maybe this was a 60s thing and nowadays every scary flick lets you know what it's all about, but this one seems to bounce from psychological horror to tragic drama and holds on that drama a bit longer. Maybe that's the point, I truly wouldn't know. Like I said, small issues and truly not even worth mentioning. Only doing so because of my modern sensibilities.
You are disgusting. After all I've done for you, you spy on me, when all I'm trying to do is help.
Who are you trying to help, Blanche?
It ain't the scariest on the market, but I don't think that's what it's going for. This is a damn fine film, and I do encourage everyone to check it out. It hits extraordinarily high WTF moments that are wholly satisfying and really make it worthwhile. My honest rating for Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, a strong 4 out of 5.
Follow the path, the sleepless night. Feels so good to have a bad fright.
Alright, so let's get this out of the way. This entire movie is fictional. Yes, Leatherface is based on Ed Gein, who did fashion himself a mask made from human skin. But like any story that's based on something that's true, take it with a grain of salt. The real events were not so dramatic. No less tragic, Ed Gein did kill 2 women. As for this one though, it's just one giant trope that was made fun of in Cabin in the Woods. I highly recommend that, by the way. It is hilarious. Anyway, on with the review. A group of 5 young people visit their father's grave and home only to be stalked and murdered by the famed Leatherface. Yeah, sorry to my former co-worker who kind of inspired this watch, but I don't care for this too much. Granted, it's not nearly as violent as I thought it would be. It does present some interesting ideas, and I do understand how it inspired certain stuff.
Eat it. It's good.
Dumb some bitch wasn't no good if it hit him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that. It's just not my cup of tea. I give credit. Compared to most slasher horrors, this does a few things that set it apart. I get why Leatherface is such an iconic killer. He has a unique design and gimmick, likely forcing the 80s monsters to come up with something different for themselves, making him likely one of the most influential slasher killers of all time. I also give credit that this movie made him more of a henchman type, a rabid dog serving someone who pulls his leash. So I'd be lying if that dynamic wasn't unique to this movie. Point is, it had some decent ideas for the time. And I give one last bit of credit, the 70s sound design is so good that there are scenes that provide legit tension. Oh, and I just learned this as I was writing my review. Gunnar Hansen, the man behind Leatherface, went to a mentally handicapped school to learn how to summarize, act and move like that without being offensive. This might be a 70s sensibility, but apparently he succeeded. Props to Hansen if that holds up in the 2020s. However, I'm sorry to the purists who practically worship this franchise, but as someone who prefers something that has more substance to it, I do have my problems with this. I've seen this setup way too many times now, from both better and worse flicks. A group of young, attractive people go to nowhere and start dying in horrible ways. Even if you wanted me to respect this as the movie that started that trope, it's a trope that's been copied and pasted time and again for decades now. Fine, it's a fair argument to say it's not this movie's fault that succeeding slasher horrors, from the good to the bad, would copy this formula, but because I've seen so many movies and seen so many cutscenes from video games that were inspired by this, that were done better, this is now an antiquated flick for me. Also, there are several sequels and follow-ups. Do they truly mix things up? I mean truly. Truly. And at a certain point, this movie is just a bunch of screaming and please be scared of me imagery that it was more annoying to watch than suspenseful.
If I have any more fun today, I don't think I'm going to be able to take it.
I guess I understand where the popularity comes from, but for the life of me, I do not know how this franchise has how a franchise managed to spawn from this at all, especially if the formula never changed. Look, maybe I have to see more of these things, which I really don't care to do. But I guess I get it. If this is your cup of tea, more power to you, but it's not mine. My honest rating for The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a 3 out of 5.
You Leatherface do all the work. He don't like it, ain't that right? You're just a cook. Shut your mouth.
Something waiting down the hall. Watch your step, you'll have a great fall. I know a sight that will make you scream.
Set in the early 1800s, Catherine Isabel and Emily Perkins reprise their roles as sisters Ginger and Bridget Fitzgerald. They are on their own and stumble upon a fortress that is routinely attacked by werewolves. Despite enjoying their safe harbor, they are attacked by one of the werewolves and Ginger is bitten by the monster and slowly starts to transform.
I will not kill you.
This one is not that good. Unlike its predecessor, it is far less enjoyable. I should give credit that it's the one that at least tries the hardest to distinguish itself. The only question I have to ask, which is a question I imagine most fans had, why? The major problem with this entry is that it feels like a reboot, which is a little alarming because this came out well before reboots were fashionable. What is this but a reimagining of the first flick, but with zero intelligence, 0 point, and despite its setting, unbearably forgettable? Yes, the original actresses are back, which certainly lends gravitas to the performances and keeps you hooked, but let me tell you, that hook is flimsy as all hell. It's desperate to hammer home how much these sisters love each other, and that love is what's going to save them both, but let's face it. This concept was tackled in the first movie, and was leagues better. There's religious undertones, cliched bad guys that are only there to make the audience question who's the real monster, and prosthetics that are so cheap. I am struggling to find anything positive to say about this. Look, it's not like it's a straight bad movie. It's really not. So, let's try and say something nice about it. As previously mentioned, both Isabel and Perkins return to their respective roles. Their chemistry practically saves this thing. The sequel watered down Ginger to little more than a Werewolf in London ripoff. I'm relieved to see her really be on screen and to actually bounce off of Perkins in a more meaningful way. Because it's a period piece, the production value is the most impressive of the movies. The sets are nice, and in the third act, we actually get to see the werewolves instead of strategically blocked puppets and animatronics. While it's not exactly better than what Underworld accomplished a year prior to this, it's still impressive enough.
Bridget, I couldn't help it.
That's all I can muster. Man, I love the first movie. It had a point. It had a message. It had something that it wanted to do, and it did it spectacularly, I might add. The sequel, yeah, okay, wasn't great, but you want to know something? Emily Perkins was so good in that movie and truly had wonderful ideas. Its only weakness is that it was a terrible execution of those ideas, but I still have a soft spot for it. This one, though, it's a gimmick. It's set in the 19th century. Good for you, movie. It's still forgettable. Man, I hope Isabel and Perkins had a great time making this movie because I didn't have the best time watching it. Not recommended unless you have to. My honest rating for Ginger Snaps Back, The Beginning, a week 3 out of 5.
Together forever?
Together forever.
Oftentimes we're better off dead. When we wake, the sky turns red. There is no way to leave this room.
Henry Spencer is a quiet, introverted dude. He finds out from his girlfriend's mom that they conceived an adorable, lovable, ever so cute... Oh, Jesus God, what the hell?
Shut up!
Shut up!
I am not gonna sit here and pretend that I understood what the hell I just watched. I'm all about challenging watches. I'm all for cerebral watching. But when you go this far with it, I just sort of get lost. The best interpretation that I can come up with is that this movie is an allegory about a man's fears of parenthood, tackling themes of sexual frustration, the fear of being a good father or a bad one, among many other things that are in my head, but I wouldn't know how to put it into words. It's like a psychological deep dive into Henry, initially enjoying the idea of family life, but as soon as he thinks of one thing going wrong, it spirals out of control and thinks about how much worse it could get. That because taking care of a child is hard, it'll be too hard for both him and Mary. He fantasizes about his hot neighbor, how that's probably a conquest that'll go nowhere. As for the deformed singing lady, I feel like that's supposed to be how he envisions his child if he succeeds as a parent. But because more horrifying visuals crop up, it's a fleeting thought. Ultimately, I think it's a movie about a man realizing that he's not fit to be a father, or simply doesn't want to be one, and opts out of it in probably one of the more bizarre endings I've seen in a horror flick in a while. It's an imperfect interpretation, obviously. I have no idea who that messed up dude by the window is. I don't get the weird visuals at all in the beginning, so take my interpretation with a mountain of salt. Well, I never actually said whether or not I like this movie, did I? It's okay. I mean, my interpretation probably makes it sound more interesting than it actually is, but it is kind of a compelling watch. I have no idea if I'm right about the movie, but it's what helped me get through it. My honest rating for Eraserhead, a 3 out of 5.
Sick.
Johnny Depp is Ichabod Crane, a scientist in 1799, and is sent to the farming community known as Sleepy Hollow. There he investigates 3 murders of beheaded people, and the murderer is none other than the fabled Headless Horseman.
Do you believe the father killed her?
The horseman killed her.
How often do I have to tell you there is no horseman? There never was a horseman. There never will be a horseman.
By God, I miss old Tim Burton. Seriously, what the hell happened? Ever since Alice in Wonderland, it's like it's been nothing but... This was awesome! Though I can understand why I had intense night terrors as a kid. Didn't even watch the entire thing, just the stuff that obviously would've. While Burton's signature style of shades of gray and very saturated color, strange architecture, and intensely gothic atmosphere, all of this is in full swing by the way, it's somehow dialed up to 11 here. The production value is breathtaking and haunting. The performances out of the supporting cast is outstanding and holds a particularly special place in my heart. Each of them from so many different iconic franchises that the flick is almost more enjoyable with time. The gruesome violence, Johnny Depp's performance, the unbridled intimidation of the Headless Horseman, and what is with the eyes in this movie? Please don't hate me. I do have my negatives. They're kind of nitpicky, but they did kind of bring down the experience for me as well. True nitpicks first. The romance subplot between Ichabod and Katrina was 100% unnecessary. Literally, one scene of an optical illusion paper bird and it's time to unsheath the great sword and mount the steed. Heads will roll, huh? So were my eyes. Some of the special effects were downright laughable. What the hell was up with that subplot of the dudes dressing up as the horsemen? That went nowhere. And how exactly Ichabod managed to figure out so much of the supernatural reasoning behind the horseman doing his thing felt random.
This tree is a gateway. Gateway between two worlds.
Yes, those scenes will annoy me forever, but literally everything surrounding them is pure awesome and one hell of a ride. But seriously, what the hell happened to Tim Burton? My honest rating for Sleepy Hollow, a strong 4 out of 5.
Stand down! I stand up for sense and justice.
The relevance of that line has only gotten stronger with time. I'm keeping that scene.
Halloween, 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 bats will fly on Halloween.
George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino are brothers and thieves who take this family hostage and force them to bring them to Mexico. They make a pit stop at the Scuzzy Titty Twister Club, which is occupied by a shitload of vampires. Oh, and violence and boobies!
Okay, hard drinkers, let's drink hard. I'm buying. Come on.
I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting this to be so awesome. This was great! Now, if only Tarantino's later writing could be just as fluid. This is certainly not the kind of movie I would expect Clooney to be a part of, yet here we are. George Clooney is in a movie where he fights a ton of vampires, and it's a shit ton more awesome than it sounds. The writing is spot on, making for some memorable gotcha moments. The creature effects, the makeup, the practical effects as a whole, they're all amazing. Yeah, you get a couple of clunky computer effects here and there, but they're pretty sparse and barely matter, if at all. There's an abundance of creative weapons, kills, and one hell of a supporting cast, including Harvey Keitel, Danny Trejo, Cheech Marin, in 3 roles no less, John Hawkes, and the immortally gorgeous Juliette Lewis, Salma Hayek, and God rest her soul, Kelly Preston.
On 3, 1, 2, 3.
I'm gonna say it. I have to. I don't have to. I could just be a sheep and bleed out how amazing this movie is and just save myself the wrath of the internet, provided it even knows where to find me. Self-deprecation humor is always funny. But I do have a few negatives that sour the experience for me. One of the biggest complaints that I have is just how long it takes for us to get to the good stuff. Make no mistake, the wait in retrospect is well worth it, but it takes about half the movie to finally get to where the good stuff is. And where's the fun in that? I suppose this wouldn't be the biggest problem if the character development we got in the meantime was any good. But what kills it is Tarantino's character. He's a psychotic murderer and, oh, what's a word I can use that YouTube won't have an aneurysm over? When it comes to women, no does not mean no. And this movie is trying to have some semblance of an emotional center because he's Clooney's brother, and he dies later on. This kind of upset me because I feel like he got what he deserved and no one should feel sorry that he's gone.
You called me a fucking nut. Now, where I come from, that stops a train in its tracks.
Keep your fucking voice down.
What?
I feel like Robert Rodriguez's output in recent years has been pretty checkered, but his early work had a lot more creativity and effort put into it. This is in all likelihood the last of the great gore fests, at least before they weren't trendy anymore. At least until Underworld, at least. I thought that was pretty gory. Not a gore fest, but you kind of get the idea. But this does have a wonderful 70s feel to it, but written for modern sensibilities and still holds up in 2021. Hell of a lot better than most of its contemporaries. I enjoyed myself immensely in the second half, which did make up for the frustrating first half. My honest rating for From Dusk Till Dawn, a strong 4 out of 5.
And what I saw is fucking vampires. Now, do we all agree that what we are dealing with is vampires?
Yes.
Whatever offense makes you.
I'm gonna cast a spell on you. You're gonna do what I want you to.
I know, this slot was intended for the Lost Boys, but I just found out that it's the 20th anniversary of this movie. Therefore, it is the 20th anniversary that audiences were introduced to the Hex Girls, which is a bit of an inaccuracy if you really think about it, because technically the VHS version was released in 1999 and the DVD version wouldn't be released until 2001. That's what we're celebrating, I think. But hey, if we're fishing for reasons to celebrate Jennifer Hale, I'm all here for that, man. I couldn't just ignore this. Lost Boys next week, I promise. Mystery Inc. is back, and after Tim Curry helps solve their latest mystery, they're invited back to his New England hometown. Turns out, this once quiet town has turned into a tourist attraction due to the rumors of the appearance of the ghost of Curry's ancestor, believed to be a witch. The gang is on the case and discovers that maybe the rumors are more true than they realize.
How dare you
you disturb my resting place, this town will pay!
Oh man. You know, I used to say that this was actually my favorite of the first two Scooby-Doo animated movies, and that was mostly due to the Hex Girls and Tim Curry. But having seen this one almost back to Zombie Island, I might take that statement back. Hey, it's no less enjoyable. I still really like it and consider it to be a crap ton better than the live action movies or even the more recent Scoob. It's honestly the last good Scooby-Doo movie, animated or otherwise. But it's showing some wrinkles. What still holds up is the animation quality. I don't know what it is about this late 90s, early 2000s animation style, but it really looks great. Not to dog on Zombie Island's comedy writing, it got some solid chuckles, but this one got serious laughs out of me. Some of the exaggerations hit me so hard, and even a reference toward the end had me in stitches. It's not even a particularly funny joke, but the expressions, the conviction in character actions, it was amazing. I also enjoy how this managed to blend the two ideas of Scooby-Doo, in that it's both about unmasking a guy in a mask, as well as having an actual monster to contend with. This would be a formula not well replicated in future movies, but it's still done fairly here. Tim Curry obviously steals the show, especially around the third act. And, well, arguably the most memorable part of the movie, Hex Girls, take it away.
I'm a hex girl, and I'm gonna put a spell on you. I'm gonna put a spell on you.
Hell yeah. The rest of the soundtrack is sadly not as good. In fact, the Hex Girls music is pretty corny and kinda hippie for a trio of goth musicians. But Spell on You is a Halloween anthem as far as I'm concerned. Right up there with Sky Cycle's Terror Time. Anyway, there are some notable blemishes and they should be addressed. You can practically feel the conservative parents of the world proclaiming how Zombie Island was too intense for their kids, so Witch's Ghost was heavily neutered. Aside from the sexual provocation of the Hex Girls themselves, this movie doesn't have the same edge. No disturbing imagery, watered down life or death stakes, it just doesn't offer the same lasting impact as its predecessor. And despite how I commend that the comedy was great, I'd be lying if every single joke landed. Sadly, this would be a sign of things to come for the animated Scooby-Doo movies, and was a criminally short era. But what we got out of these first two movies were quality, enjoyable outings that did a far better job of capturing the spirit of Scooby-Doo while also pushing the franchise forward. Or at least did something that's worth remembering and defending. If you want quality and faithful Scooby-Doo movies, this and Zombie Island are the ways to go. My honest rating for Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, a 4 out of 5.
That's quite an act, Miss,
Thorne. This is Dusk and Luna.
Mission accomplished, Lieutenant.
No one likes sarcasm, Commander.
I do.
Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Stay safe and healthy out there. Hope to see you soon.
Something rancid in the bowl, and we'll take your restless soul. Something breathing in the hole. Heed the man behind the window. Follow the path this sleepless night. Feels so good to have a bath.